This is Carl with your Consus Consulting Livestock recap for the week ending January the 3rd. Quite the volatile week in livestock, same as it was in all markets. We've had a pretty choppy trend here the last few weeks. The futures continue to be led by the cash market. This is especially the case in cattle. We did see some cattle trade finally today. Pretty light though, leaving the market pretty untested. But we did have a few sales coming around that $2 to $3, $4 for some good looking cattle, higher than what we've seen, but still pretty much a light test and not enough to really give us what we would call a trend. Feeder sales for the week picked up. Auction values bringing anywhere from $3 to $5 higher than we have last week. And again, we got to look at this. We're in the midst of the holiday season here. Next week, we'll finally get back to normal with some normal numbers for everybody. We did see a bit of a rebound in the red meat production for the week. Beef, 432.3 million pounds. That was up 14.9% from the week before. Pork production, 495.6 million pounds. That was up 11.6%. As we see, Packers don't shut down for New Year's the way they do for Christmas. So we saw a little bit of a rebound there. I expect to, like I said, see, better numbers next week. Slaughter numbers picked up a little bit this week. Interesting to see cattle coming in 16 pounds heavier than they were a year ago this week. Hogs coming in 2 pounds lighter. And we went into the report thinking hogs had been a little bit heavier this week because they'd been standing a little bit, putting some extra rig on. Really didn't see that come through on the weekly production report. So that's a pretty good sign. Exports for the week took a tad bit of a breather, nothing real phenomenal there. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. We did see a spike in beef demand to finish out the calendar year, but it was only a little over 1,000 metric tons and not enough to really get that market worked up. Uh, Pork demand steady to finish out the year. And that's from the export side, though. The domestic side, we did get a pretty interesting story this week. Some retailers claiming that they ran out of beef over the Christmas holiday season. High-end beef, the prime ribs. Prime ribs hard to find on the retail side right now. Packers starting to push a little bit to get them in. We are seeing a shift in the U.S. consumer, cutting back on big purchases, vehicles, home improvements, you name it, and keeping up so they can maintain their ability to keep going out to eat. That is the entertainment that a lot of consumers across the United States have picked up. And as long as that holds in there, we will see that cash market remain strong. The other big story this week, funds. We saw a lot of fund activity in both cattle and hogs, and we finished out the week with some long liquidation in that cattle complex. I'm actually a little surprised it took this long for it to develop. I don't think we saw a massive flushing of positions by any means, but we did see some profit taking. With funds sitting record long cattle in the cash market leading the futures, it was only a matter of time before we did see a tad bit of a correction in the cattle values. Now, we're still looking at $190 fats, $196 and feeders in that $264 range. So I wouldn't be saying it's a major correction, but it could be the tip of the iceberg. Um, Hog values corrected pretty much steadily all week. I wouldn't say it was a hard correction, but they corrected all week. We have some building demand worries coming on China. China's economy just isn't as strong as what they have thought it should be. And it's really not reacting to the stimulus packages that have been presented. So we are seeing a little bit of concern over our export demand, but we're countering that with it just goes back and forth, and we're countering the foreign demand with A, the domestic demand, but B, the fact that red meat supplies in the United States have shrunk considerably in the last couple of years here, and we can afford to give up a little bit of demand. Again, Watch the consumer. The consumer will tell us what happens in the red meats moving forward. Other than that, just not a lot of fresh news in the livestock here this week. We'll get through. Like I said, next week will be a full week of slaughter. We'll see if deliveries pick back up and how current everybody wants to stay on these feedlots. With cold temperatures, a lot of these heavy cattle, and I'm talking some of these that we've seen pushing this 17, 18, 1900 pounds per head. You quit gaining weight when you really get to that size, and cold weather is going to be a little bit stressful. I think we're going to see a little bit of an uptick in fat cattle movement next week, especially if corn stays firm. Almost high feed costs, fat cattle, combination, you're going to want to move some more. That is the wrap up for livestock for this week.